Okay, we're middle of the Seder. I think we left off in middle of Magid, right? Anyway, so we did Kadesh, Ordechatz, Karpas, Yachatz, and then we're middle of Magid. Now Magid is a biblical mitzvah. It's one of the biblical mitzvahs the night of Pesach, which is to recite certain parts of the Haggadah. Now the minimal parts of the Haggadah, which is mandatory for men and women to say in any language, is basically Avodim Hayinu. I'm just going to say Mitchila Evdei Aved Zara through Aram Avi, Aram Eved Avi, and then the Rabbi Gamliel with Pesach Matzah Marar and B'chol Dar V'Dar straight through the second cup of wine. Those are the vital parts of Magid, the minimum requirement of Magid that somebody has to say. Now they could say it in any language, they could say it, they can listen. If somebody wants to say it for everybody and they listen, that's fine. At the end of Magid, you drink the second cup of wine. Now our custom is you make a Berei Piagafen on each wine, even though you made by Kiddush. So why are you making another Berei Piagafen? So the answer is because each kos is choshev, is prominent by itself. It's interesting to know there are customs that on the second cup of wine they don't make a bracha Berei Piagafen, and on the fourth cup of wine they don't. Now the first cup they make by Kiddush that you have to make, and then that covers the second. But by the third one you're already benched. So once you're benched, you already said that. So it's then on the third cup you make a Berei Piagafen, but not on the fourth. But again, the majority of customs around the world is that you make a separate Berei Piagafen in each cup of wine, and again you have to drink it reclining. After you have the second cup of wine, you have what's called rochza. Now you have to wash for the matzah with a bracha. So you wash like you would normally for bread, 3 times or twice on each hand, and then you make the bracha on the Tilas Yadayim. Then you have like this. So now you're going to be doing 3 mitzvahs in a row: matzah, marar, and kairach. Okay, those are the 3 that you're going to be doing. Now ideally, because they're all 3 interconnected, as I will explain soon, it's preferable not to talk things that don't pertain to these particular mitzvahs from the time of matzah through eating kairach. Why? Because the bracha of Ameitzi Lachem Min Haaretz and Al-Chilas Matzah also goes on the kairach and Afikaiman. So there are people, it's brought down in halacha, that won't even talk until Afikaiman. That means they won't talk by the meal. But the Rebbe writes, we're not careful of that. Chumri Seder, we don't do it. But between Meitzi Matzah and kairach, it's better, not forbidden, it's better not to talk. Now what do? You're left with, on the Seder plate, the half of matzah you broke away already, took away. So now you're left with approximately 2.5 matzahs left. So halachically, on Yom Tif, you need Lacha Mishnah. You need 2 chalas, or 2 matzahs. So you pick up the 2.5 matzahs, and you make the bracha, Meitzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Okay, that's why it's called Meitzi Matzah. Meitzi means the bracha of Meitzi, and matzah is the second bracha that you say Al-Achilas Matzah. So you pick up 2.5 matzahs, so now you have the Lechem Mishnah, you make the bracha Meitzi, you drop the bottom matzah, carefully, you drop the bottom matzah, and now you're left with 1.5 matzahs. So now you say the second bracha, Shekacham Mitzvah V'Tzivanu Al-Achilas Matzah. Now, the din is, you need to eat a kazayas of matzah. That's the mitzvah, kazayas of matzah. The problem is, as everything else in Judaism, where do you take the kazayas from? From the top matzah or from the middle matzah? Where do you take the kazayas from? So because there's 2 opinions, and you talk about a biblical mitzvah, so therefore what does halacha say you do? You take a kazayas from each. You take a kazayas in the top matzah, a kazayas in the middle matzah, and you eat it both together. Now, before we go into details, our custom is, it's brought down in halacha also, normally you dip matzah into salt, or challah into salt, bread into salt. But matzah you don't dip into salt. Why? It says in halacha you don't want to nullify the taste of the matzah. You want pure bread matzah, you're not with any additives to it. So again, so then because you don't know which matzah you take a kedayis from, you take a kedayis from the top and one from the middle. What happens if you can't? You can't eat that much. You can only eat one. Which one do you take it from? So Shulchan Aruch says you take it from the top one. Not from the broken one, you take it from the top one. So if somebody's only able to eat one kedayis of matzah, they eat the matzah from the top one. If they can, preferably, they should have from both. Which is self-understood that people that don't have a Seder plate, like women or men, and if the custom is only one Seder plate per household, there's absolutely no reason why they need to eat two kazaysim. They're anyway getting from the box of matzah. There's not enough on the Seder plate. You're anyway taking from the box of matzah. So if you're eating matzah, you're not anyway eating from the first to the second. You're eating just matzah. So therefore, you only need one kazayis. You don't have to even go think about taking a second kazayis. One kazayis is enough because that's the mitzvah. Why we eat two is because we don't know if it's in the top or the middle. So because of that, we take two. But if you don't have a top and a middle, then you don't need to take two matzahs. Your yaitza also if you have half and half. Your yaitza if you eat a kazayis of matzah, no matter what. How much is the kazayis of matzah? Whoever has their own Seder plate is supposed to l'chatchila have a kazayis from the top and from the middle. If they can't, the Alter Rebbe says, and that's the poskim right, you only take from the top one. But ideally you should take from both. Only one kazayis. Now, how much is a kazayis? And in how much time must you eat it? So there's a lot of different opinions what the definition of a kazayis is. Number one, is it a weight or is it volume? So there's a big machlekes in poskim, a kazayis of weight or a kazayis of volume. Volume is much less of a kazayis than weight is.
What is
Kazayis means it's literally the size of an ounce, but that's how much, size of an olive. Okay, so now, it ranges anywhere from 1 ounce to even a half an ounce. That's how far the shitas go. So at least for the first matzah, which is biblical, you should try to eat a half a shmura matzah, if you can. Now, if you can't, then try to eat a third of a shmura matzah, at least, because that's the biblical part. So then you should try to eat at least an ounce, preferably in weight, but if not, at least in volume. If somebody can't even do that, they should ask a shayla what they should do. But l'chatchila, you should try, at least for the biblical matzah, you should try to eat, if you can, approximately a half of a shmura matzah. It's approximately an ounce, depending. Some matzahs today, if they're thicker, you get 6 matzahs per pound. The lighter matzahs, you get 11 matzahs per pound. So depending how you divide the 16 ounces of a pound into 1 ounce, you can be eating 3/4 of a matzah to a third of a matzah as an ounce. But again, that's at least for the first mitzvah. That's the square matzah you should eat. If you look at the package of square matzah leaves during the year, if you have a box of matzah, it's 11 matzahs and it says 11 ounces. That means 1 matzah is an ounce. So by the machine matzah, they write, the contemporary pasuk, you should eat at least 3/4 of a matzah. Okay? Which is 3/4 of an ounce. So that's what you need to eat. Now, in how much time do you need to eat it? So in the halacha it's called kedei achilas pras. The amount of time it takes to eat 3 eggs, which for a practical purpose has no relevance to the actual halacha. How much is it? One second. How much is kedei achilas pras? In halacha, it ranges from 2 minutes to 11 minutes. We paskin, in our circles, we paskin between 4 and 7 minutes, preferably 4 minutes. I know a lot of the Litvish Gedalim say 2 minutes, and they try to eat the matzah in 2 minutes. But it goes like this. So you need to eat a proper kazayis. If you nibble on the matzah, women especially, they're not yetzer the mitzvah. if they nibble, they're small and talk in the middle and fall asleep and take another little, You have to drink the wine, you can't sip the wine. You have to eat the matzah, you can't nibble on the matzah. And you need to eat it preferably within 4 minutes, not more than 7 minutes. That's the ounce. Now, when does the clock start ticking? When do you start counting the 4 minutes? When you take, no, not the first bite. When you make the first swallow. That means what people try to do is, it doesn't look very nice, but they try to eat as much matzah in their mouth as they can before swallowing, and then they swallow it, and that's when the time clock begins of 4 minutes. So you save about 2 minutes, by the way. It's not a joke. It goes by quick when you're eating matzah. It's not like wine, Huh? I know that we talk about that every year, and I saw already shitas in halacha that the kazayas of matzah bin atayra is a quarter of a matzah. You can't eat achilas. By the way, the only problem is because you're eating 2 kazayisim. But al pidin, you really have to swallow 1 kazayis in the 4 minutes because you did the mitzvah. It's not a regular round shmur matzah. I'll tell you a little math, but don't get... If you have 8 matzahs in a pound, half a shmur matzah is an ounce. Yes? If you have 6 matzahs in a pound, so it's a third of a matzah. If you have 10 matzahs in a pound, it's almost 3/4 of a matzah. Right? So it depends how you divide 16 ounces based on how many matzahs you have in the pound. But it has to be eaten quickly. People that have a problem, some people can't. I have no idea how many people call that they can't eat. They're this and that. And they can only have 1 piece of matzah. So when you tell them what to do is really, they should eat a third of a matzah, but you should own. So somebody said, okay, so a third of the matzah, a third of that for matzah, and a third of that for keirach, and a third of that for afikem. I said, no, then you don't get anything. You have to do the biblical mitzvah. The biblical mitzvah is the first one that you do, meitzi matzah. Meitzi matzah is the first mitzvah, the biblical one. The other ones, you could be makel even more. But you're right, l'chayra, either the k'dachilas pras doesn't make sense, or because it's another interesting din. According to halacha, it's by Yom Kippur also a din. Achila gasa means you just stuff it in your mouth. If somebody stuffs food in their mouth in Yom Kippur, biblically you don't get kaddish. Because it's not called eating. I mean, that doesn't mean you could do it, but it's still, you don't get kaddish, it's still biblically forbidden. But it's, achila gasa is not an eating. If somebody's going to stuff matzah like a chazar, then it's even a shav that's called eating if you even did the mitzvah. So you have to eat it normally, and you have to basically do what you can. If somebody can't eat it unless they get it wet, they should get the matzah wet. Huh? They should keep it, make it wet, and eat it right away. Well, the first brach, if you have your own Seder plate, you eat 2 ounces. Yeah, and then keirach 1 more, and afikem 2 more. According to our custom, at least 1 more. What? Afikem is 1 kazayis that you could be makel to a third of a matzah, but our custom is to try to eat 2 kazayis for afikem. But like women and all those types of people that have a problem, they should only eat 1 kazayis for afikem, 1 kazayis for keirach, everybody eats. Huh? Would mean no for afikem. I mean, you could be makel, so it'd be 2/3 of a matzah for 2, yeah. The same thing maror, because maror is also rabbinic, so you could be makel for kazayis and maror that it should be 3/4 of an ounce.
On the korach, the 1 ounce is like include the maror and thing, or
no? By keirach you have 1 kazayis of matzah and 1 kazayis of maror. Now, well, I didn't finish my timat yet. So you eat the matzah, you reclined, and you eat the matzah, and you got to do it quick, and get everything done. Then you have the maror. What? If a woman has no problem and she wants to eat, she can eat 30 matzahs fafikei. If they want to eat 30 pounds, they can eat 30 pounds, 30 matzahs, whatever they want, they can eat. Okay, next. So now the mortar is like this. You have to dip the mortar into halachic, right? So our custom is that we take the halachic and we dip it into the wine. This is what the Rebbe did. And at the bottom of the Seder plate. And then you dip the mortar into that halachic 3 times. And then you make the bracha, shekachon mitzvah tzivanu al achilas mortar. And you eat the kazayis mortar, not reclining. But that's very easy to eat in 4 minutes because it goes down easily. But like we mentioned at the beginning, our minhag is to use mortar, horseradish, and the romaine lettuce for mortar. We use both. But if somebody wants just to eat the mortar, now in the modern books they write how much is a kazayis of romaine lettuce? A piece that's 8 by 10. See, by mortar, the lettuce, you don't have thicker pieces and thinner pieces. If you eat the stalk of the romaine lettuce, which is thicker, then the right has to be 3 by 5 inches. But if you're eating the actual leaf, because it's very light, so then you need 8 by 10 for the kazayis and mortar. But if you're using, let's say, horseradish also, then you don't need 8 by 10 because the horseradish is counted into kazayis. So then you need to make the bracha al-achilas mortar, you don't recline, and you eat the mortar. To be continued.